nearly 100 American soldiers wounded in Iranian attacks, and their own defense ministry decided the public didn't need to know. From here in Europe, that is the detail that stops you cold, not the war itself, which we have watched with grim familiarity, but the quiet institutional instinct to simply not mention the injured until a newspaper forced the issue. Allow us the outsider's observation. In most democracies, a government that conceals military casualties from its own citizens crosses a line that is difficult to walk back. In Washington this week, it is being treated as a matter of, quote, operational security, a phrase elastic enough to cover almost anything. Here is what happened. Last Friday, 3 American soldiers were killed in an Iranian strike on a base in Jordan. Tragic and reported. But according to reporting citing several anonymous American officials, in the week before that, dozens of soldiers had already been wounded in Iranian attacks in the same country with several helicopters damaged. The Pentagon said nothing. No mention of the earlier attacks, no casualty figures, no word on the damage. Once the story broke, the Pentagon spokesman offered a curious two-step. First, he dismissed the report as, and we quote, an unfounded and malicious accusation, flat-out lies from partisan hacks. Then, on Monday evening, he confirmed the number of wounded American soldiers since the 7th of July had climbed to nearly 100. 96%, he said, were back on duty. The overwhelming majority, he insisted, were mild concussions. So the accusation was a lie, and also upon reflection, mostly accurate. This is the kind of rhetorical maneuver that a European observer files under remarkable. You do not deny a cover-up by suddenly producing the very numbers you had declined to produce. Note, too, the language. The department now styles itself the, quote, War Ministry, a self-appointed rebrand that would raise eyebrows in Berlin, where we are rather careful about words like that for historical reasons you can probably guess. And it accused the newspaper of trying to further unsettle the American public after the death of 3 soldiers. A military official offered the technical defense. Central Command is not obligated to disclose information about wounded soldiers, particularly when they quickly return to duty. Legally, perhaps true, but there is a difference between what a government is required to say and what a democracy expects it to say. That gap is exactly where trust quietly leaks away. What we are watching from the outside is a familiar pattern under President Trump. Since the failed ceasefire, the Pentagon has released very little about American military strategy. Information becomes discretionary. The public learns what it is permitted to learn when a leak forces the timing. Americans may accept this as the price of an ongoing conflict. From Europe, where the memory of governments that decided the truth was optional runs deep, it looks less like security and more like the slow habit of not answering. The soldiers, at least, were real. So were their concussions. That's the view from here. What does it look like where you are? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for the perspective American media won't give you.